Hello. So one thing I didn't really talk about this set were emblems. In my opinion, just because of the way they changed some of the synergies, emblems aren't something that are super crazy or important a lot of the time. Some of them are really powerful and really strong. But today I just wanted to rank the emblems, talk about some of the bonus effects, some of the synergies, some of the combinations you can do with the different emblems, and kind of give you like a little bit of an insight on which emblems I think are a little bit better or a little bit less common for certain comps. If you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm doing some more for fun tier list style content, but normally I'm doing daily TFT guides. I'm just kind of waiting for the next patch. Next week is going to be a patch week, so there's going to be the updated patch notes that I'm going to go over, and then I'm also going to go over best comps and all of that stuff. So if you're interested in keeping up to date with set 15, make sure to like and subscribe. Anyways, let's get straight into it. So one thing to note always is that with the emblems, whenever it's a frying pan related emblem, a lot of times it has a bonus effect. Some of the other spatula emblems also have bonus effects, which makes them relatively strong or relatively powerful, or usually have like great on-board bonuses that you can make use of. So for example, Bastion emblem, right? Bastion emblem, it not only gives you the Bastion trait, which you can play for Bastion synergies, it also gives you armor and magic resist, it gives you attack damage and ability power based on your armor and magic resist. So if you're playing deep into Bastion, you can get a lot of extra damage. This one I actually put as run in the mill. It's kind of like in the B tier. There's some synergies that are really nice with it. One great enabler is specifically playing around Yasuo reroll. So you can actually play this comp where it's like 6 Bastion Yasuo. And Bastion works really well on the Yasuo because a lot of times you can play this from Cooking Pot, right? Something that's always important to note. There's an augment Cooking Pot where you'll gain permanent HP. It gives you a frying pan, which allows you to make an emblem that uses a frying pan, and then you gain permanent health using that. So a lot of times like this works really well on the Yasuo. You can feed a Swain, make the Swain really tanky, and then the Yasuo gets a bunch of extra AD, which he scales pretty well with from the Bastion emblem as well. So I think it's a B tier. Like, it has its use case. It might be a little bit better, but it's not something you're necessarily going to be crazy to play around. Honestly, I might put in A tier just for flexibility, because 2 Bastion also is pretty good for your board. And I think that particular scenario of enabling that comp is enough for me to say that's a little bit better than just average in my opinion. Battle Academia. I think Battle Academia as a trait right now, it's a little bit hard to play around, but the emblem itself is very strong. This is what makes the tier list a little bit confusing, which is why I kind of don't do this form of tier list. I usually just rank the comps or the traits. But Battle Academia gives a lot of damage amp. So basically, you get 6% damage amp per potential. So a lot of times this emblem will just work as good as an item. It will give like 30 plus damage amp plus the extra HP, plus it gives mana regen, because it's made with a tier. So a lot of times it's just great to put on a unit. However, 7 Battle Academia doesn't really fit in nicely unless you have certain boards. So it's kind of a little bit awkward. There's not like a great holder of it. This used to be really good in like certain Malzahar lines when Malzahar was being played with Battle Academia before Malzahar reroll was just a thing. So I think the emblem is very strong. It's just the comp is a little bit hard to play. Like, you're not really taking a Battle Academia emblem. If you have it, you can maybe play around it, but it's not something that's like crazy. We're going to put in average for that reason, but it does have a really great onboard effect. Crystal Gambit. I think Crystal Gambit gives a lot of flexibility to play around Crystal Gambit cash outs. Obviously, it also enables 7 Crystal Gambit. Right now, on current patch, I would not recommend Crystal Gambit because Ashe is really bad. Ashe is one of the main ways you would stabilize a Crystal Gambit board, being the 4-cost carry. But a Crystal Gambit emblem, either on a dummy or getting dropped it or being able to make it, it not only enables you to play a sort of high cap comp, but it also allows you to very easily get certain cash outs leading up to your like final game state, if that makes sense. So I definitely think it's one of the better emblems to play around, so I'm going to put in A tier. Duelist emblem has an insanely strong effect. Duelist right now, this is another case of like the patch being like kind of okay. I'm going to put in B tier. Duelist is pretty good. It's really good on like a TF. It's really good in certain cash outs. It's a little bit hyper inflated. If you look at the stats for Duelist emblem, I think it's one of the emblems that looks like it's a lot better than it is. That's because it's also tied to being a Crystal Gambit cash out. There's a lot of Crystal Gambit cash outs where you get Duelist emblem. But in terms of the actual effects that it has, you do bonus true damage, which works really nicely with units that are just constantly auto-attacking. So back in the times of Ashe being really strong, you would usually play 6 Duelists, and then you would put Duelist emblem on TF, and that was a really high cap potential for that board. However, Duelists are a little bit awkward to play around unless you have a really good front line to support them. In certain cases, like the melee carries don't really love it that much. but this does give a lot of true damage. It does scale really well. It's just a lot of the effects is more related to like a unit that's doing like targeted damage, or having like, you know, similar to like how TF works, where he's like shooting the little pages towards everybody. So it has good synergies in some cases. It's just that it's a little bit harder to play around, so I'll put it in B tier, because you get a Duelist emblem is not something you can easily just like slot in or get a lot of value off of. Like there's some cases where you can do that, but it's not something you're gonna structure your game plan around. Edgelord emblem, I think this one's okay. This one as well I put in B tier. In the past, I think I talked about Edgelords not being as good. Edgelord emblem has a pretty cool effect where dealing physical damage reduces armor by 2. It's similar to like Blinding Jewel or those type of things. This is not Shred Sunder. It's like actual flat reduction. So if you put this on a unit that has like, you know, multi-hit, or, you know, similar like an auto attacker that just like melts units that way, you can actually reduce damage. You can reduce their armor by a lot, which really strengthens the Edgelord trait, because all the Edgelords are doing physical damage. It's a pretty decent emblem to play around as well, because it has good synergy with just playing around like 6 Edgelord. It works really well on Braum, for example. Braum especially, I think when he spins, so you know, Braum grabs unit and starts to spin. He also does the whole armor reduction while he's spinning, because it works as like a multi-hit if I'm not mistaken. So that's great. So you have like really good boards that you can cap high around. It's just very, very particular. So even though it's something you can play around, like, you know, maybe when things are more balanced, like, you know, a 6 Edgelord or a 4 Edgelord Luchador style comp will be a little bit more common. And in those cases, it will be a little bit better. So in the case, I say that it's in B tier. It's in that similar tier of really good effects, pretty strong emblems, just a little bit harder to play around, a little bit harder to slot in, if that makes sense. Executioner emblem. So Executioner once again has an effect because it is an emblem related. It's a frying pan related emblem. So with this, you do extra true damage based on critical strikes. It's quite good, and there's actually boards that play around this really nicely. You really like to drive up Executioner, especially if you're playing around either Lee Sin to cap your board, or if you're playing Akali boards, for example. It also works with Katarina boards. Executioner is great on like a Caitlyn with a Battle Academia Katarina board. So it actually has some use case. It's actually quite good, and there's quite a few comps that can actually play around it. So I definitely put it in B tier. I just think that Executioner as a trait, you don't care too much about playing deep into it. A lot of times it's like a nice to have. It's kind of like, oh great, I get to have Executioner in. That helps me a little bit. But it's not something that's like super essential or crazy. So I don't think it goes into that A tier. Because the only reason Bastion emblem is up here, by the way, is because it's so easy to slot in, right? 2 Bastion, a lot of times even Star Guardian boards love it. A lot of times if you're playing Braum, like there's so many boards where you would just love to just activate Bastion. And then there's also the reroll line that uses Bastion in a particularly nice way. So because there's those 2 synergies that associate with it, that's why I'm putting it in A tier. But with Executioner, I feel like there's nothing that's really spiking to a sense of being like really, really incredible with the emblem. So I put in that average tier, right? These are all emblems where if you have them and you have a spot for them, they're quite good. But it's not something that's like by priority by any means in all of those cases. Heavyweight emblem. So this one right now has a really niche bug, which, you know, kind of makes it so you get like a lot of HP or something. There was like a Leduc video on it if you guys watch that. I saw it because I was trying to figure out a different bug, and then I found that one. But either way, I think it's like in the same tier. I think you could unlock some potential. It's similar to Bastion, except I don't think there's like crazy reroll or specific lines similar to the Bastion emblem. But it's something you could just slot in, right? 2 heavyweight gives your whole team extra HP. And then if you put this on a unit that is getting takedowns or is having like AoE in their front line, they can gain a lot of health within a fight. Which is a pretty good bonus effect as well. This could work well with like Star Guardian boards, for example. Could work well with like vertical heavyweight boards as well. But I just think that it's a little bit less common, so I wouldn't necessarily put it in the A. Also, if a lot of things end up being in B tier, we might separate the tiers a little bit. Like I have an idea of what I want to put in S tier. I think these ones are A tier, but just stay tuned. At the end of the video, we'll relook at it, and I might move them down just to separate them a little bit. Because something like heavyweight, I might move down to C tier, but I just don't know if there's going to be other ones that I want to put in C tier, if that makes sense. I know I'll just put in C tier now. I'm looking ahead, and I don't see anything that's super crazy. Juggernaut emblem. Juggernaut emblem's kind of weird. Its main effect is that it gives attack speed, which isn't usually who you want to put Juggernaut on. So there's not many lines that I think are super crazy about Juggernaut. I'm going to put it in C tier as well. I think the only time you really care about making Juggernaut, the times that I think Juggernaut are really important is when I'm playing like Kale, for example. Right? If I'm playing Kale reroll, Juggernaut emblem is such an insane spike because you don't have to worry about rolling or finding a set. And you can also Juggernaut emblem your Zac, so that you have 6 Juggernaut early, and a unit that you're usually playing on your board also now contributes to the front line instead of being like an odd one out. That's the only real case I think about it, but it's not something I would greed or take like via augment or anything like that. It's also not a team-wide buff, so unlike Bastion and Heavyweight, having the trait active doesn't like do something crazy for your whole board or give you like some team-wide buff that's pretty nice. So in general, I think it's very niche, so not necessarily bad. Obviously it has use cases similar to Heavyweight where it's good in certain spots, but I just don't think it's I don't think it's in the same tier of being like applicable in more cases. Luchador emblem, this is basically like a way of stabilizing around 4 Luchador. 4 Luchador is still pretty good, but it's not what it used to be. In the past, I would put Luchador emblem a little bit higher because it was like really relevant, especially when Volibear was super relevant. Right now, it feels kind of like like a lot of times Luchador emblem, you can't use it to replace a Braum, right? Luchador emblem is basically just supposed to replace a Gnar so that you can play like a lot easily like, you know, a 6 Edgelord 4 Luchador line or 4 Luchador active, or you just activate Luchador on a unit that you're playing, right? If you have a Braum or if you have a Volibear, if you have a Mundo, right? You make a Luchador emblem and now you're able to like make things work with that board. However, I feel like the use cases for that are a lot less common now. Before it was really broken because Luchadors used to completely de-aggro, right? So when they would proc the Luchador trait, they would cleanse, they heal, they jump out, they jump back in. Now they'll still be targeted even if they get like their cleanse thing, or more or less like they don't jump away, right? So they don't have like that effect anymore. They kind of jump in place. So it's not as broken. Before it was like really nice to just shove it in because it just gave you such an insane power spike. Now it's kind of like like, you know, whatever. So I put it in B tier, but this one, we'll see. I might move it down a little bit as well. Prodigy emblem. I think Prodigy emblem is actually really good. Prodigy emblem, basically this is another one that gives a team-wide buff, right? You get mana gen on your whole team. I think it stabilizes the Yuumi board as well. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but like the Yuumi board I think is quite playable. It's just like really hard to convert off of those spots because the patch is not very good currently. But if we're trying to make this future proof, like, you know, small adjustments and Yuumi Prodigy will be very relevant, right? It's like right on the cusp of being a commonplace comp every single game. You know what I mean? The Prodigy emblem is great because it also has, not only does it give a team-wide buff, like Prodigy, you know, your whole team gets some mana gen, which is nice. You can activate as a 2 trait. It works really nicely. The Prodigy units get more. But additionally, it also has a shielding effect, right? The bonus effect is pretty nice, right? The mana spent, you shield an ally. Now, 250% of the mana spent is not that crazy. Excuse me, not that crazy. You know, it's usually like, you know, 100 or 200 health shield or something like that at most. But it does allow the unit to cast their ult a lot more frequently. So even putting on like a frontline unit, like a lot of times with Yuumi Prodigy, you put on a Leona. You can also put on a Rakan, because Rakan has another cool effect where you want him to cast his ability because he has like a shield and heal allies effect, which is pretty nice. It has really good synergy. But it just works really nicely. And then if you have Protector activated, all those shields grant durability, because Protector is not, the durability isn't just for the Protector units, it's also for the for anybody who has a shield. So I think there's like nice synergies there, and it has widespread applicability. So I think of the emblems, I want to put in that A tier. I think it's a little bit more common. Protector emblem I think is broken. I think it's like really good. I'm debating if I put in an S tier or not. This is one of those really strong emblems just for its effect, right? When a shield breaks on the holder, you heal the holder and the ally for 20% of the shield's value. With the Protector trait, you usually start the game with a pretty hefty shield, and you also get a second shield or whatever because of the Protector trait. The whole thing with Protector is that you're giving shields. Activating Protector also makes it so that all shields that are happening give your team durability. So it has really great synergies with stuff like keepers, it has really great synergy with other augments that provide shielding. And additionally, it has some broken synergies, right? Like Protector on a Poppy is insanely broken because you put that with best defense, where shield breaking is now gonna do damage. Now she has Protector, and now the shield, she gets durability, and oh my god, it's just like a shit show. But it also makes like front lines a little more stable. Cassante is really hard to find sometimes. Obviously, you want to eventually hit the Cassante, but it can also stabilize your board to be 6 Protector without the Cassante. So in a lot of cases, I think this has very wide applicable use cases. I think it has a lot of broken situations that make it really strong. So I'm going to put in S tier, because out of the emblems right now, I think this one is a win condition emblem. Of all of these, they're all like can win. They're all things that are like nice to haves. But Protector Emblem is actually something that I would see myself considering to take via an augment, because it can give a win condition. I've seen people like, you know, take Protector Emblem while playing Star Guardian to use that synergy on the Poppy to make it really strong, right? Like there's stuff like that where there's niche lines that are actually like can win with it. So I want to put in that S tier. Sniper Emblem, I think it's like nice to have. Obviously you can put it higher because Jinx is broken, but I don't think it's that essential. You get the sniper trait and you get 2 range, so you might think that like range is really important, it's really good, it's great, it can make units broken. That's all true and everything. It's just they're not a big use case. Vertical sniper is not a really relevant comp, and a lot of the comps that play vertical sniper, you don't really care too much about having the sniper emblem because there's already a saturated backline. So a lot of times like you're looking for ways of making your front line stronger, and sniper emblem doesn't really help with that. So it's kind of a little bit weird to play around in certain cases. So I definitely think it's that average tier. I don't think it's anything particularly crazy or particularly strong, but it is just like, you know, pretty good if you maybe need to activate 2 sniper and just get a little bit of extra damage amp on your board. I'm sure there might also be some sort of broken synergy if a line comes up in the future. It's just right now, it's like the way things are going, there's certain lines that are just so dominant that there's not like some of these more creative lines that have a little bit of breathing room. Maybe in future patches we might see like Sniper Emblem being broken on some other carry that has good synergy with the sniper trait, and then just playing like vertical sniper. But it's not something that's super crazy right now, so I'm putting in B tier. Well, actually we might put it with the other ones. I think I'm gonna put it here. It's not something you necessarily, and it's not craftable either, so you really have to like go out of your way to get this emblem, and I don't think it's worth it in a lot of those cases. So I'm gonna put it in C tier. Sorcerer Emblem, you get extra ability power, and it also activates the Sorc trait. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Sorc Emblem is really good, don't get me wrong. You get a lot of AP from it for free, and it could work in a lot of different boards. The problem with Sorc Emblem is that it's kind of unnecessary a lot of the time. Usually when you're playing Sorcs, you want to play all of the Sorc units that are there. You're not really looking to replace anybody, right? So like for example, if we're considering like the Sorc units, right? Like let's go Sorc, right? And let's go through them all. Right? Like, who are we getting rid of? Like, Gwen you want to play. So Gwen's on the good side, right? Karma's on the good side. Ahri usually gets dropped for Gwen, so a lot of times you're not playing Ahri anyways. Lux has Soul Fighter, so you're usually playing Lux. This has Mighty Mech, so you're usually playing this. So then with a Sorc gun, they're usually dropping Swain, which is one of your frontline units that you're usually going to play, and he activates Bastion. Or it's going to be Kennen, which you also usually activate Protector with, because your high cap version of Sorc is that on level 9 you're playing Cassante usually, right? You're either playing Cassante or Braum. So a lot of times what ends up happening is you end up dropping like a Lux or something to try and play like a better front line, which is fine, but that's what I mean. It's just so unessential. It's one of those emblems where it really doesn't matter that much, in my opinion, unless you have like a very particular spot, or like you're cooking potting a Swain, right? Similar ideas before, right? If you have cooking pot, you're feeding a Swain, and then you're trying to go for like Swain 3 with like a Sorc board. But all these lines just feel worse because you usually want to, like, you know, it's not super relevant. Obviously, you can use it to activate 2 Sorc, right? If you're playing Star Guardian, for example, you can put Sorc on, I don't know, like Seraphine, and then you have Ahri, and then you get 2 Sorc in. But it's like, even those boards, you usually drop the Ahri. She's the first Star Guardian that you drop to play more frontline. That's like the new wave nowadays. So it's not something that's super crazy, and I don't think it's necessary, so it goes in that B tier. Soul Fighter, I'm actually going to put in A tier. I think Soul Fighter is essential, or not essential, but it's very good if you're playing around Soul Fighter units. Soul Fighter gets such a huge power spike with 8 Soul Fighter that this allows you to stabilize without hitting the Gwen. It's actually really powerful, and there are a lot of units that really like Soul Fighter emblem, right? Like Volibear, for example, is a great unit to play with a Soul Fighter emblem. He loves it. If you ever see Soul Fighter Volibear, it makes the comp look like it's like balanced. It makes it look like it's a normal comp. Additionally, it just gives you so much stability that I think that it deserves to be an A tier because it feels almost like an enabler. It's kind of like some of the other emblems I was talking about where they don't like do a lot for the board. A Soul Fighter emblem really helps out the board, and it can really give you a good spot to play around the comp because the comp already is a little bit of a, like, you know, the comp itself isn't strong, but it has like a decent way to cap, and it has a decent way to like do really well. The Soul Fighter emblem really pushes that forward, right? Soul Fighter Volley or Soul Fighter Braum, and being able to play 8 Soul Fighter while also activating Luchador, while also activating Edgelord. These are things that really matter, and it can make your level 9 board significantly stronger. Even so, you can even drop some of the other ones. You can even, if you really want, you can drop to 6 Soul Fighter and have more room for legendaries, but no matter what legendary you put on it, you're just giving them a lot of stats, right? You're giving them AP, AD, and true damage because that's what Soul Fighter gives, and you're giving them HP as well. Right? It gives a lot. Like, if you look at Soul Fighter, give this to any unit, right? This is why it caps really high. You're getting AP, AD, and you're getting true damage on top of that, and you're getting HP for tankiness. Put that on a Volibear, he's not meant for all this, you know what I mean? So it makes him a lot better. It gives him a lot of combat power, and same thing applies to other units if you're playing other versions of Soul Fighter boards. Star Guardian, I think, is A tier. Star Guardian emblem really gives you a lot of stats. Because basically the Star Guardian increases all the other bonuses. So a lot of times if you're playing a bunch of bonuses, it's just great, right? And it stacks. So this stacks with Seraphine, it stacks with the other ones. It makes the board cap pretty high. It's not essential by any means, and it's not something that gives you a team-wide buff by any means, but it is something that does give you a pretty strong Star Guardian spot. And also giving units the Star Guardian trait, now they get a bunch of benefits, right? If you think about Star Guardians, similarly how I was talking about Soul Fighter, right? If you pick a Star Guardian unit, giving a unit all of these bonuses is pretty massive, right? Getting shields, ability power, all that stuff is pretty good. It's nothing to sneeze at. It's nothing to take for granted. So I think it's definitely like in that A tier. I think there probably are some broken synergies that we don't even know about because we're kind of fixated on the certain situations of like power-ups and units behaving in a certain way. So I definitely think it's in a better tier than the other ones. Strategist emblem I think is S tier. So Strategist emblem, Strategist is a team-wide buff, right? It gives shielding, it gives what's it called? Shielding, and then it gives what's it called? The damage amp in the backline, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. It's been a long day, as you can tell. I'm very tired. I was yawning a little bit at the start of the video. Right? It gives damage amp. Yeah. It gives damage amp. It gives triple if you're holding the Strategist emblem. The main thing about the emblem is that combat start, this has a support item style effect. They actually remove support items from the game. There used to be items that you would put or you would get like either by augment or by drops or whatever, and they would be like powerful items that are mainly buffing your entire board or buffing some of the units on your board. So what this emblem does is it gives armor and magic resist, or it gives attack speed. So you can either give attack speed to your backline units, which is great for all backline units, or you get armor and magic resist for your frontline units. Either way, you're getting a team-wide buff. And here's a fun fact. If you guys don't know, you don't need to activate Strategist to get the armor and magic resist or the attack speed. So basically, this item in its own, if this was, besides being a Strategist emblem, as an item, this literally, without Strategist active, gives a total of 60 armor, 60 magic resist, because it's holder and then the allies to the left and to the right, like one within the same row. So 3 allies are going to gain either 20 armor and 20 magic resist. So it's like 60 total resistances on your board. Or sorry, 120 total resistances if you count both sides. Or you're giving 15 attack speed to 3 units in your backline. Both of which are very powerful effects without even considering the fact that it's a Strategist emblem that then gives your whole team, either your front line, some extra shielding, or your back line extra damage amp, which additionally stacks in terms of getting triple if you're an actual Strategist. So if you're holding the emblem, you're just gonna get like, you know, a triple giga shield or a triple giga damage amp. So it's actually insane value for what it is. It's arguably the best emblem in the game by far. I don't even think it's up for debate. It's just crazy. And not only that, there's also high cap versions of boards now that play around Strategist, right? Most Rise boards, Crew, for example. Like, there's lots of things. But no matter what, one thing that you can always think about is Strategist. You just put in a Janna, right? Janna being a Strategist is fucking broken. Because, like, Janna is a Strategist and a Protector. And you know, Protector, this is something, like, in case you don't know, I only found out about this, like, semi-recently. Like, I found out within the last couple of weeks. I didn't know this at the start of the set. But Protector, you get the durability even if you're not a Protector. So, Janna being a Strategist, if you activate Strategist, right, like, your team gets the durability. So the board, so just slotting in a Janna on your board and activating Protector and Strategist, now your Strategists are giving everybody a shield, and the Protector now is giving everybody durability as well. And if you have the Emblem, it makes it even easier, because you just have to, like, you know, you just have to play around a single Protector, and this can be your +1 Strategist, right? It's why certain boards that play around Strategist Protector works really well. It's why Kog'Maw used to like that. Now Kog'Maw usually plays around Bastion because Protector's hard to hit. But it's just a really, really insane synergy, because there's also a unit that makes great use of the other synergy that combos with it really well. So definite S tier. Supreme Cell, I think, is B tier. Like, Supreme Cell is good, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the boards that want to play Supreme Cell usually have built-in Supreme Cell already. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, giving somebody Supreme Cell is nice because it gives a lot of damage amp, and it makes them, like, into a Giga Monster. But it's not that crazy of a synergy unless you're specifically playing the Supreme Cell boards. And even then, a lot of times you're playing the units anyway. So usually this is like a way to drop Kaisa and play 4 Supreme Cell with a Kali. But it's not that important, because a lot of times you're not playing... Like, this was better when you cared more about playing dual carry Supreme Cells. Nowadays, like, you're not playing dual carry Supreme Cells, so it's like very awkward, the Emblem, unless you like cap out really high. But either way, it is really good, right? In this particular situations where you're going to be playing a Kali, for example, you know, you can Supreme Cell another unit on your board, like Rise or Lee Sin or somebody, and then you get 2 Supreme Cells, and it gives a lot of damage amp. It's great. It does buff your board quite a bit. It's just not, it's in that same tier as, like, not super essential and a little bit more niche. But obviously, if you're playing towards that line, it's great to have. So it's not, like, C tier or lower. It's, like, definitely in that B tier area. Same thing with Wraith. I think Wraith as a random +1 is like whatever. Cassandra is really popular, so Wraith I think gets a little bit of like a plussy like kind of vibe to it. But it's not that like crazy, if that makes sense. I think it's like somewhere like around here. It is really strong if you hit 6 Wraith. Obviously you cap really high with those boards. But I think being a Wraith unit doesn't benefit many units that much. There's not like a crazy synergy. Unless it's mech. This is really good in Mighty Mech if you feed this to a Mighty Mech unit. But we're not going to rank these emblems on what's best to feed into Mighty Mech, right? But if you feed this into Mighty Mech with not Drift Duo, with Mech Pilot, they benefit from all the traits. So if you put Wraith on a Lucian or a Senna, and then you have the Mighty Mech eat it, and then they benefit from the trait Wraith, the Mighty Mech being a Wraith is like fucking broken. That's like one of the most broken things in the game if you've never seen it before. Let's separate this tier a little bit though. I think Heavyweight I'm going to move down. I think Sniper I'm going to move down. I think I'm going to move this. Actually, no. I kind of like it the way it was. Low-key, I kind of like it like this. I don't think there's any emblem that's like absolutely dog shit. Like never make it kind of tier. The only thing you might want to move down is Crystal Gambit, because on the current patch it's not that good. But I think like for sake of longevity and flexibility, I think that it should be an A tier, because I think that it is a good emblem. It just comes down to like, you know, if Ashe becomes playable, right? But I don't want to be like, Ashe sucks. This is the tier list. I feel like that's very counterproductive to this, to the discussion of ranking the emblems. I think that it's like, you know, assuming Ashe becomes playable, this is where I would kind of put them. If you're watching this video, not today, but like, you know, in 5 days, because they're going to buff Ashe in like 3 days probably. But either way, I'm pretty happy with this. I think I'm happy with this. If you like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully that was informative. I tried to give explanations for like the different comps and use cases for them. That's kind of how I do these tier lists, to make them semi-informative. And then we're going to get back to doing guides next week. Like I said, I'm just trying to like bide some time. until the not necessarily buy time, but I'm just trying to like make some more for fun content while people are kind of maybe not playing as much on the current patch. In my opinion, people aren't really engaging as much with my channel because I think, you know, there's general angst and anger towards the current patch right now. So, you know, we're just trying to keep it light, and then we'll get back to doing like hardcore, like let's grind, let's rank up when the patch becomes a little bit more stable, maybe next patch notes. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and see ya. Bye bye.